Good day everyone to our thesis advisor Dr. Vanessa Casanova, to our panelists Dr. Regina Bautista, Dr. Marshall Salvador, and to our beloved program head Ma'am Lani A. Labrador. And to our RECO, Ms. Rizzi Angelica Dagus, and also to our research chairperson Dr. Baricris Osita. I am Angelica Lagrada, and I want to greet you all a pleasant day. We will be presenting our proposed study entitled Social Workers' Role in Implementing Juvenile Justice and Welfare Law on the Moral Development of Children in Conflict with the Law in Occidental Mindoro. Together with my group mates, Mr. Mark Edward Laudenio, Mr. John Raymond Tagodin, Mr. Romeo Ancheta, Mr. Amado Belgar, and Ms. Jaira Daligdig, Ms. Abigail Vargas, and to present the introduction, here is Ms. Jaira Daligdig.
Thank you, Ms. Angelica Lagrada. I'm Jaira Daligdig for the introduction. According to UNCRC, or United Nations Convention on the Rights of Children, all children in conflict with the law in the Philippines are afforded appropriate protection and measures. Also, this program promotes worth and dignity to all children who committed crimes against the law. The Juvenile Justice Welfare System Act of 2006 was implemented in order to protect children in conflict with the law and also to provide services and programs for them. So this study focused on the role of social workers as implementers of juvenile justice and welfare law, on the moral development of the children in conflict with the law in the particular municipalities of Occidental Mindoro. Objective of the study. This study aimed to determine the social workers' role in implementing juvenile justice and welfare law in moral development of the children in conflict with the law. Specifically, it has the following objectives. First is help of juvenile justice and welfare law to the CICL, all children in conflict with the law. Second is implementation of Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act. The third is challenges encountered. And the last one is ways to enhance moral development. And let's move on in the theoretical framework. The researchers utilized the Hirsch's social bond theory, the Becker's labeling theory, and the Culver's stage of moral development theory. And to present the conceptual framework, here is Ms. Abigail Vargas.
Thank you, Ms. Jaira. I am Abigail Vargas to discuss the conceptual framework. The conceptual framework of the study is presented. At the center of the framework is the RA 9344 or the Juvenile Justice Welfare Law. Around it are the factors that will contribute to the social worker's role in the implementation of RA 9344 in the moral development of children in conflict with the law. In terms of how helpful is RA 9344, the implementation, the challenges, and lastly, the suggestions of social workers in enhancing the moral development of CICL. And now let's move on to the research methodology. The researchers used eidetic or transcendental phenomenology. In data analysis, researchers utilized Collace's method in order to analyze the collected data in an interview. And also frequency and percentage to know the number of social workers who identified teams based on the statement of the problem. The respondents of the study are 7 social workers who are handling CICL. This study was conducted on November 2020 until June 2021 at Occidental Mindoro. The research instrument was used is interview guide, while in data gathering, the researchers conduct permission, observation, focus group discussion, and online interview. Now, let's proceed to the results and discussions. In the first statement of the problem, there are 3 themes drawn which are opportunity to change with 28.57% or 2 out of 7 respondents were identified in this theme. Next is provision of diversion program with 28.57% or 2 out of 7 respondents were identified in this theme. And the last is provision of intervention programs with 42.85% or 3 out of 7 respondents were identified in this team. For the second statement of the problems, there are 4 teams drawn which are background checking with 42.85% or 3 out of 7 respondents were identified in this team. Next is guidelines and principle with the same percentage of 42.85% or 3 out of 7 respondents were identified in this team. Third team is roles as change agent with 71.42% or 5 out of 7 respondents were identified in this team. Last is orientation to the officials or agencies with 100% of the respondents were. To continue presenting the results and discussion, here is Ms. Angelica Lagrada.
For the third statement of the problem, there are 4 teams drawn. First team is seek advice from legal authorities with 28.57% or 2 out of 7 social workers were identified in these teams. Second team is early childhood care development with 14.27% or 1 out of 7 social workers were identified in these teams. Third team is availability of Bahay Pag-asa with 28.57% or 2 out of 7 social workers were identified in these teams. Last team is interview the immediate family with 2 out of 7 social workers were identified in these teams. And for the fourth statement of the problem, there are 4 teams drawn which are supporting needs with 42.85% or 3 out of 7 social workers were identified in these teams. Next team is realization from program and services with 57.14% or 4 out of 7 social workers were identified in these teams. Next team is moral and personal development with 57.14% or 4 out of 7 social workers were identified in these teams. Last team is non-judgmental attitude towards CICL with 42.85% or 3 out of 7 social workers were identified in these teams. For the conclusion, based on the summary of findings, the following conclusion is extracted. First is the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Law helped the children in conflict with the law by providing diverse intervention programs to ensure the total recovery of children. Second is the social workers followed procedures to effectively implement the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act. Third is the challenges that the social worker face in the implementation of Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act attributed in the need of youth center, the collaboration of the client's family for the early childhood care development of children, and collateral interview of the client's family. And fourth is the social workers employs different ways to enhance the moral development of children. Fourth is the social worker employed several ways to enhance the moral development of children in conflict with the law. First is the social worker must maintain the privilege of children in conflict with the law on providing diversion and intervention program and navigate them for the positive way of life to correct them from the mistake they have done before. Second is, it is also important for the other government agencies to inform and orient them about their responsibilities to prevent CICL from being labeled as criminals and support their needs. Third is, the result of the study recommends that LGU must be oriented as to prioritize child's welfare and build youth rehabilitation center. And the last is, internalizing the principle of social work is important in achieving goals for their clients. The social worker must maintain the positive attitude and outlook for the programs that are being provided to the CICL for them to enhance their morals. That's all. Thank you for listening.